pentatonics are a little bit lifeless, like you're just running up and down the scale every time, here's an exercise for you to help you break out of that box. These are similar to my 4-note pentatonic sequences exercise, but far less complicated. As well as giving you ideas about how you could use scales a little bit more musically, these also make great warm-ups and dexterity exercises, because if you play them with one finger per fret where possible, you'll be using combinations of fingers that you might not have used before. So they get you moving in different ways, and they also force you to use your pinky a lot, which people definitely need to do more of. By the way, PDFs for these exercises will be available to purchase in my Patreon shop, and they'll be free to download for my Patreon supporters. The PDFs will include the exercises, patterns that I cover in this video, plus quite a lot more, so there'll be loads in there. I'm going to be thinking and talking about these as major pentatonic today, simply because I feel like a lot of players neglect thinking about major pentatonic in favour of minor pentatonic, and then it just becomes another weakness that you've got to address later down the line in your playing journey. So, I'll be playing in C major pentatonic, which has the same notes as A minor pentatonic. However, I'll be hearing this, C, as my tonic, as my home note. To further reinforce that idea, you can play with a drone like this. Hear how when I hit those C's it really feels resolved and home. Right, on to the first concept, which I'm calling Skip 1. Let's arrange the notes in a line. I like to arrange them vertically, like you'd see them on the stave, rather than horizontally, because I feel like it represents the pitch better. We're going to ascend the scale. So let's start at the bottom of this position. I'm in C major pentatonic position 1. So we'll start at the bottom. So we play this C. Play this note. Then skip one note and land on E. Play that note. So I'm thinking of these two notes as a pair. We then go back to the note we missed, D, skip a note, so we get to G and play that G. So far we've got. We continue up the scale in that way until we reach the top. So next one would be E, skip a note, get to A and play A. Back to G, skip a note, so we get to C and play C. And just continue up in this way. If I do that with the click at 70, it sounds like this, as 8th notes. Then, for the descending version, we start at the top, D, skip a note, so we get to A and play A. So that's the first pair of this descending pattern. Back to the note we missed, C, skip a note, so we land on G, back to the note we missed, A, skip a note, so we land on E, and just descend in that way all the way down. So the descending version with the click at 70 sounds like this. Let's have a little look at a couple more of the variations that you could do with this idea. So let's start at the bottom and ascend the scale, but descend every pair. So this was our first pair when we're ascending. That was our first pair, and this was our second pair. But we could descend every pair. So instead of, we'd go, and instead of, we'd go. So it'd sound like this. click at 70, that'll sound like this. And then in another variation, we're going to start at the bottom, we'll ascend the first pair and descend the next pair, and then we'll alternate all the way to the top. Ascend a pair, descend a pair, ascend a pair, descend a pair. So it sounds like this, with the click at 70. This is where, for me, this concept and these kind of ideas start really coming to life. Now, I like the straight up, descending with descending pairs. It's cool, it sounds great. But when you start alternating and creating these cool, like, snaking patterns, that's where I think this concept really starts to shine. So that's skip one. All we're doing is we take the scale, we look at the scale, we skip one note and play the next note. Come back to the one you missed, skip one, play the next note. The other exercise is skip two. So it should be pretty self-explanatory what we're going to do now. We look at that C major pentatonic scale and we start on C. We skip two notes. So we skip D and E and go to G. We then go back to the next note in the scale, which would be D. Skip two notes, so we skip E and we skip G and we go to A. So on and so forth. Really cool sounds. And then the descending version of that with the click at 70 would sound like this. In that little improv I did over the backing track, I had 3 pre-written lines that all used some of these skip 1 or skip 2 ideas. Some of them were just sort of descending pairs, some of them alternated between descending and ascending. The tab for those 3 lines will also be in my Patreon shop with a description of what's going on with each of those lines. Everything else in that solo was completely off the cuff. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I just had those 3 pre-written things that I wanted to squeeze in just so you could hear some of these concepts in action, how you can apply them. You know, you don't have to go all the way up a scale in that way. Just take a little 3 or 4 of these pairs, or even just 2 of them, and then hit a note. It doesn't have to be a massive long run. As always, thank you for watching. I hope you found this really useful. These concepts and what I've talked about, what I've shown you, especially if you download the PDF and look through all the variations, this is months of learning. But once you've got it for life. Like I say, they make great warm-ups, little dexterity exercises. And over the months, or weeks or months, you'll internalize the flow of some of these patterns, and there'll be certain patterns that you really like and just sort of become part of your sound. They'll just embed into your vocabulary. So yeah, I hope you found this useful. Leave a comment below if you've got any questions. Please subscribe if you found this useful and would like to see more content. And there's a link to my Patreon below as well if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks very much. See you next time.